What I'm planning on doing is talking about just a framework for effective debriefing. And then I have 3 gracious teams that shared video with me that will watch their video and we'll go through this exercise of an effective debrief. Starting with, I think it's good to just remind ourselves, like, why do we debrief? You know, what's the point? You know, it's not just to make us feel better about ourselves or make our teammates feel worse about themselves or to highlight what we're doing terribly or you know, whatever. It's really the reason why we debrief is to help us reach our goals more effectively and more efficiently. And I think it's worth recognizing that debriefing is really just one part of a season-long process of identifying what we're going to work on, really defining that goal, talking as a team and working together as a team to set up a drill to work on that goal, and then going and executing that goal. And then the debrief is the part that just allows us to measure, calibrate, and repeat that process. So a good debrief is going to be in line with our training plan and our specific goals. It's going to help us achieve our goals through kind of that measurement, evaluating, confirming what we're doing right, as well as correcting what we want to do wrong. It should facilitate good team dynamics. We should like each other still after we're done. It should reinforce our strengths as well as help highlight where we need improvement. And I think that's really important because you know, I think a lot of times we can tend to make our debriefs more about just what am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? What's going wrong? And if we just focus on that, we don't actually spend time capturing what we did right and ensuring that we can do it again. So it's not just about feeling good about ourselves. It's about, you know, if we think about, like, we've got this performance at the end of this season, a meet, and we don't have much time to practice. When you actually think about the actual time we're practicing, if we get 10 jumps in a day, that's a great training day. That's 10 minutes of practice for the whole day. So in our debrief, we really want to make sure that anything we're doing right, we keep doing that right, that we don't lose that because we didn't notice it and reinforce it. So and I think it's important to recognize that, because if we go into a debrief and we just say, oh, it's great, but we could have a positive debrief without being specific and reinforcing a strength, and it would be just as ineffective as not recognizing the strength at all. Yeah. So I feel like I know that I've come away from a good debrief if I can clearly articulate what I'm doing towards my goals and what specific actions I'm taking next. So when I walk away from a debrief and I'm like, yeah, okay, we're working on this, we're getting there, and now I'm going to go up and I'm going to do this thing, and we're going to get closer to the goal. It should be motivating, but motivating in a way that where I have an action item that I know exactly what I need to do to go perform better after that. Yeah. So the debrief, when we think about debriefing, we try to break our debrief into 3 parts. And I say 3 parts and then I put a 0 here, but I'm going to allow myself that, and I'll explain why. But the 3 parts, first, before we even start, we need to just make sure that we're working within a framework of the context of where we are in our season and our goals. All right, so once we've got that framework, then the debrief should start with just an objective, like what happened? How did we do on our goals? Did we meet them or did we not? The second part is identifying each individually and as a team, what did we do well specifically, and how do we do that? And what can we improve, and how are we going to do that, you know, for each person and then as a whole team. And then the third part of the debrief should wrap everything up and reinforce 1 or 2 specific action items that each person in the team are taking away from the debrief. So, okay, so we had this goal, this is what we did, this is what we did well, and now to ensure that we're going to cement this improvement or take the next step, I'm going to do these things. We're going to go repeat this jump, and we'll talk about this. But that's what we should come out of from the debrief. The debrief should have action items coming out of it. Otherwise, it's not effective. Yeah. All right. So starting with the context and goals, and if you were in my seminar a week ago, where I talked about kind of setting up goals for the season. We talked about breaking our season into 3 phases, and I don't want to get into too much detail there, but the idea is that our season goes in a cycle, starting with the beginning of the season, and actually Steve talked about this 2 nights ago too in his Performing Your Best. At the beginning of the season, our phase 1 is more technical focused. Our goals are more around building a foundation, of having a good fall rate, of having good random work, good togetherness, solidifying our block technique. That's all phase 1, and it's much more of a technical phase. So our goals and our debriefing should be more technical in that phase. Phase 2 is going to be more of a refining our technique, refining who we are as a team, starting to build trust and speed and just see a lot of different things as a team. So our goals around phase 2 are a little bit less technical and a little more process and seeing things, and there's room for some technique, but there's also some more like high level ideas that we're applying to things. And then phase 3 of our training is generally execution, just getting ready for the meet. And at that point, our goals should not be technical at all. They should be all process, execution. How do things feel? How are we gelling as a team? All that kind of stuff. The more tactical execute type goals. So it's really important when we go into our debrief to know this context. The night before nationals, we don't want to be, debriefing specific technique of a block and changing block technique. That's not really going to help us perform our best there. And then, same with, day 1 of training. I don't need to be worrying about how fast we're going. I can't, I'm not gonna go from training jump 1 to the meet all in one debrief. So I'm just focusing on the piece of the hill that I'm climbing at that point. Yeah. And then a week ago, I talked about once we've broken our season into these phases, then breaking each camp into specific goals and in each camp having a very specific goal for each jump. And the more measurable that goal can be, the more precise, the better. So again, setting the context is before I go to this debrief, and hopefully before I did the prep for the jump, before I got out of that door, I was in my head, I knew what my specific goal for this jump was. It was, we were going to have good block builds and good first pictures. And here's specifically what I was going to think of to have that first block build be really good. Or maybe our goal was, we're going to have 3 seconds to the second point out the door. That's our goal. And I'm sitting in the door knowing that's my goal. So I go to the debrief knowing this is the goal that the context is, So here are some examples of goals that we might have. The first few are a little more technical. Then we start to get more into the trust building, speed building, execution type goals. All right, so now part 1 of the debrief. So we show up at the debrief and I know, okay, I'm in a certain phase. I'm in a technical phase of training, maybe towards the end of the technical phase. And my goal on this jump was to see each block build correct and each enter correct, So the first thing we want to do is we want just to get an objective view of what really happened. And hopefully we've got video. If not, then maybe that objective view is just replaying it in your head. But I'm going to assume that we have video here. But you could do this without video. And the thing that's important is, as we watch the video, we want to watch it all the way through without stopping it, without discussing it, without any distractions, externally, but as well as internally. Try and, as you watch it the first time, try not to judge anything or fix anything yet. Just watch it with that objective idea of like, what was I trying to do and did we do it? For example, if the dive was 13:20 and the goal was just have good block builds and pictures, I might just watch it and say, okay, 13, that build was okay. Okay, the enter, that's good. The 20, the build was really good, enter was good. 13, yes, another good build, another good enter. So I'm just making a mental checklist of what happened and did I meet my goals. Yeah. If I had a goal that was measurable, now I'm going to measure it. So for example, I wanted to get to the second point by 5 seconds. I can time it, and then I can record it, and I know, yes, I did, no, I didn't. So if we need to watch it again to do that analysis, you do speak up, say, hey, let me watch it again. But this is what we're trying to do in this part of the debrief. All right. So once we've done that, the next part is, what did I do well, and what did I and the team do well, and what can I improve, and what can the team improve? So we're going to watch it a second time, or a third time if we've already watched it twice, but we're going to watch it again. And in this point, now I can start to make judgments. Okay, what am I, in the context of the goals that we set, and whether we met these goals or not, what did I specifically do to make that happen? Or if it didn't happen, or even if it did happen, what could I do to make it better? And it needs to be both. It needs to be both, what did I do to make it happen, and what can I do to make it better? So we watch it and think about that to yourself. Everybody's thinking about that to themselves. And once everybody's done with that, then we let each person talk about their own contribution. And this is in the context of a four-way team. So we have time for every person to talk. So as each person talks, we want to make sure that everybody's finished doing their own analysis for themselves, so they can fully listen to their teammates as they talk. And we're just going to take turns, one person at a time. Okay, I was really happy with the 13 builds. I was looking across. On the 20 build, I want to look over here more. That's it, on the inter, I want to look more at the halfway point. So just summarizing what we did well. We're not narrating what happened. We're just providing bullet points. If you're in a larger group, like say a big way, you're not going to get the luxury of having every person on a 60 way say what they did well or what they didn't. You may be lucky enough to have the organizer point out something for you, and I would take that as a gift. But if you're not, you can still, in your own mind, take that step. Watch the dive, and then watch, when you watch it again, okay, what am I doing well, and what could I do better? Yeah. And then after you've asked it as a team, or you can individually say this, and sometimes it almost comes together on its own, but what did the team do well towards those goals, and what can the team improve? Often the things that the individual people are saying are the things that the team is going to do well. So the centers might both say, oh, I want to, keep this, I want to look for that inner picture more by stopping sooner. So the team is going to look at that inner picture more and stop sooner, So it might be the same as the individual comments, or it might be, if a few people are saying, oh, I want to make sure I don't feel rushed. I want to kind of take my time, or, so then we might say as a team, let's all just get together and look and just be super together and build that confidence. So there may be something, a bigger team theme. All right, so then the last part, okay, so now we've talked about this, we know what happened, we know what we did well and what we want to improve. Now we need to have specific action items so that we can go execute this efficiently. So as a team, or individually, you want to agree on the specific action items that you're going to do. And this is the part where I feel like it's so easy to come up with a laundry list, again, of like, okay, this is training jump 1 from our season, and now I've, if I can only do these 110 things, then I will be ready for nationals. But you're not going to be able to do all of that. So just pick 2 and go kill it on those 2 things, and then do the next 2 things, and then do the next 2 things, and then do the next things. It's way more effective than trying to fix everything at once. And it's so hard not to do, because it's easy to look at that first jump and be like, well, we got all these things to do, but just pick 1 or 2. Do your best job of figuring out what are the best 1 or 2 things. But really, even if you pick number 3 and 4, and next time you pick number 2 and 6, but if you take those things 2 at a time, you're gonna get up that mountain so much faster than if you try and conquer all 110 at the same time. Yep. So action items. If you're repeating the dive, it's pretty easy. So you're just gonna say, okay, we're repeating this dive. We're gonna go up and do it again. The centers are gonna. So for example, the centers are gonna look more and hold that head switch and guarantee a better inner picture. And then you might have individual specific things. As point, I'm going to arch. I'm going to first inner out the door. I'm going to come out the door. Right as it gets keyed, I'm going to think about arching and looking over here, whatever it is. Yeah. So this is that part where we should go away from this debrief saying, yeah, okay, that dive was great, or parts of it were great, parts of it weren't, but I know exactly what I'm going to go do, and I know exactly how I'm going to do it, and now I'm energized and ready to go just kill it on this next dive. Yeah. If you're not repeating the dive, there's still, and this is where I think it's easy to not have action items and let things slip. So if we're not repeating the dive, maybe we want to take notes to make sure that we see this goal again on a future dive. Maybe we did something well, so we want to clip a little piece of the video and add it to a best of reel so that we can go watch it again later. Maybe we just need to make sure we update our spreadsheet where we're tracking what our goals are and what we're doing each season, and say, yes, check, we are happy with block 13 and block 20 for these things. Or if there's something specific that we're working on, like looking more this way or a later head switch, we can right then stand up and walk the dive, thinking through those changes to help cement those changes in. Remember, the goal of our debrief is not just to point out what we're doing wrong, but to really make a change and cement it. So that's what's so important at this point, is to come up with an action item that's going to allow us to go make that change and commit to making that change so that we can power up that mountain. Yeah. Right. So other stuff that comes up. So we've done the debrief, and man, I really want to tell my teammate that he wasn't looking at me and he didn't mention it, and should I bring this up? And this comes up. So the first thing I would say is if there's something that you really want your teammate to do that wasn't brought up in the debrief, the first thing I would do is really ask yourself, okay, is this really relevant to what we're trying to achieve? So if our goal is, good block technique, or our goal is, and it's not relevant to that, well, maybe it's not the time. I suppose if it's something that keeps coming up, that might be worth it. And then also say, is this as important or more important than the thing they're already working on? So, for example, if a teammate comes out and he's like on his back on the exit, maybe telling him, I think you need to stick your left leg out more after you flip over. I mean, I wouldn't worry about it. Let's get him on his belly first, and then we'll see what's happening. So ask yourself those things. If so, that's fine. And when you ask your teammate for something, be specific about your request. So instead of, man, it was so floaty, I couldn't stay with it, say, hey, on the enter of block 20, can you think about arching a little more in the build and through the entire move? Like, you're saying specifically what you want, when you want it, and what you're looking for. Yeah. And then conversely, so if we all agree that we're following that, then when your teammate asks you for something, first just trust that they've gone through this process. They've thought about it. They've listened to what you said, and they think that this is important enough to bring it up. So on our team, we talk about, like, just the first response to a teammate asking for something should just be yes, sure, absolutely. And then take the time to listen and make sure you understand what's being asked. And so you can do that by repeating what's being asked. Okay, so right at the build of block 20, you want me to look at you and think about arching, and then arch all the way through to the end? Yes? Okay, great, So, and it doesn't need to be a long discussion. It doesn't matter whether you think you're already doing it or not. As long as you agree it's a good thing to do, just go do it. And then you get bonus points for after you do it again, asking, like, hey, was that better with the arching? Yeah, okay, great, Another thing that comes up, so sometimes as we're debriefing, some other thing comes up that's out of the context of the goals. So, for example, maybe we're working on an explosive block start, and then we somehow miss a catch, and it's unrelated to what we're doing, or we're all of a sudden we're not catching any of the 18s, and we don't know why, or we funnel an exit, and that wasn't part of anything, there was nothing exit related in our goals. I would say if it can wait, just write it down. You don't want to lose it, but write it down and agree to come back to it, maybe at the end of the camp or the end of the day. So, okay, well, let's make sure we revisit it again, and we're gonna make a dive where we go drill 18s, and we can focus on that goal. if you have time, and after you're done doing the whole debrief, you can discuss it, but I will be really careful of not letting a conversation like that derail your daily plan and your daily goals. We're trucking up this mountain, and if we let ourselves start worrying about something else, we lose our momentum up that mountain. Yeah. Another thing that sometimes can come up in a debrief, if you disagree with a teammate, first I would just ask, is this thing actually important? A lot of times I think disagreements come from discussing what actually happened. No, I really was looking, but I couldn't see because of the sun, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter. We don't have to agree on what actually happened. If we can agree on what we're trying to do or what we're going to do next, that's really all that matters. So maybe we can kind of stop it at that. I think also, if we can try and find common ground. So often, like, disagreements we find are more like just misunderstandings, in or a different way that we're saying things or seeing things, but we're actually a lot closer in agreement than we think. So if we start working towards figuring out how close we are in understanding, and just there's a nuance in it, that's fine. That's a good way to address it. And I think this is also where having a very specific goal really helps, because we can just keep focused on that goal. As long as we know that we're working towards fixing something, and we're all aligned on what we're doing towards that, that's the most important thing. All right, so I have 3 examples. These are all 3 teams that graciously and courageously sent me video to let me speak. And everybody sent me videos from meets, or where they were doing practice meets or warm-ups for meets. But I want to demonstrate debriefing in different phases of training. So I'm going to make up context for these dives that's not necessarily the context that this team was in, but so if you're this team, understand that, but I think that's most effective for what I'm trying to show here. So the first team we're looking at, so we're going to assume they are towards the end of their phase 1 of training. They've been in the tunnel a bunch, and they've worked all the block technique in the tunnel, and they're now putting it into the sky. So their goal is to have a good block build and interpictures for each of the blocks. And their exit goal is to have really good presentation and move together from they're launching an H, and then they're building into a 13, and they want to be presented well and move to that first 13 together, and on the same plane. This dive is 1320. We're going to just watch it first, and reminding you that the goals are the exit, nice presentation and together to the move, and block builds and interpictures. Great, so we've watched it the first time, and now we're just trying to assess how do we do towards our goals. I want to stop and just debrief the debrief a little bit. So on your own, say to yourself, were you able to watch that and be just an objective observer about what happened? Did we meet our goals? Did we not meet our goals? Or did you start to allow yourself to say, oh, you're watching whatever position you normally fly, and say, oh yeah, he's he's getting a little distance here. I do that too. Or, oh, the head switch was too early. Did you find yourself starting to judge and find fault, or were you objective? Yeah. Okay. All right. So just high level, did we meet what we wanted? The exit, yeah, I think the exit's really nice. Comes out presented, and it's super together, moving to that first point. There's our presentation as a team right there on the hill. Looks great. Really nice together move to that 13, right? So we're checking that goal, big check mark there. All right, so now for the builds, this first 13 build looks pretty nice to me. We let the inner get a bit far, right? Okay. This 20 build looks good. Check that. The inter, we're getting some distance, and we're a little bit misshapen, so the inter I would give an okay to, right? 13 build, a little bit good, a little bit okay. And then we're letting the inter get far again. Yeah. This 20 build, I would say, is we can look at. Same with the 20 inter. And now there's a nice 13 build. Little big on the inter. A nice 20 build. So I think we would say on the builds, there were a number of good builds, both on the 13 and the 20. Some things we can look at on the build. The inters, we want to look at distance. And then the exit, we met our goal. All right. So if I'm each person looking at this as the point, I would say, as we're going through it, I'm really happy with my presentation out the door and where I'm looking and keeping things up the hill. And then as the point, the things I would say, I like the 20 builds, and the 13 builds, I'd like to see myself closer and kind of more in a side body picture. And I'll show you what I mean here. So if we had the point more kind of closer to where the tail is, they're going to help keep things smaller, and they're going to be closer to where they're trying to go. Like right now where he has to go all the way around. So for the point for the build, he would aim to see himself in a build more. So from the point, I'm saying I want to build closer in on the build of the 13. Okay, if I'm the outside center, I would say also I really like the presentation and the togetherness with the inside center to that first 13. And then that first move on the 13 is where we want to see where the centers, as outside center, I'm going to see myself stopping closer. So this first picture right here, we want it to look like a stair step picture, as close as you would see the two wings on a stair step picture. So as an outside center, how am I going to do that? I'm going to do that by really looking a lot longer over my shoulder and committing to stopping my center point, my momentum, and my hip only a stair step picture away from the other center before I head switch and start continuing that rotation. That's the thing I'm going to do as outside center. If I were outside center, I would say I really like the 20 builds. I think are good. On the inter, I want to make sure that I'm staying focused on keeping the piece square and looking like a piece, and less concerned about the tail and the point. So at this point, like both centers are kind of letting letting themselves worry too much about the rest. And of course, I'm still seeing and trying to keep myself right in between, but the priority for this piece in the center is to have a nice square side body and spin on center together. That's the first priority. And at the point at which we're looking away and starting to get things misshapen, then we're losing that priority. OC might say they like the 13 builds, are nice, yep, for outside center. Inside center as well, I would say, and especially you can see it here on the hill. So if this is the build, we're looking for that side body picture. That stair step picture with like the inside center here and the outside center there, right? So as inside center, especially on the hill, recognizing that everything is going to take you down the hill, he's gonna think about looking a lot longer over this right shoulder and doing everything he can to get this knee to right there and to stop right there really, really hard, knowing that all of gravity, all of Earth's pull is making him go the other way. Yeah. So as soon as he looks away and head switches, it allows allows his center point to travel down. How do I undo? So as outside center, I'm thinking about that stair step picture and stopping my hip and not allowing my head switch to continue my momentum going around. Really seeing that stair step picture close. Yeah. As tail, I would say I really like my presentation on the exit. I liked the 13 build and the pushing I have towards the other piece to keep that inter close. Additionally, I want to make sure that I stop my hip when I get there before I head switch, and I'm not letting my head switch let me continue to allow my center point to go away and around. And that's about seeing that inter picture. And then for the build of the 20, seeing the IC more and setting up with the inside center versus just going after the grips on the outside center. There's like a glitch or a brain lock there, and then sorry, the grips on the inside center, and then the tail gets enticed away by that. So we've each said what we're doing individually, and as a team, there's a theme here. So as a team, the exit, we're going to go up and do the same exit, and then we're going to try and really see that close stair step picture on the first 13 inner, and then everyone after. And then each person has some specific things they're doing to see that, but we're all working towards seeing that inter picture. And then on the 20, on the inter, the center is really just focusing on seeing that shape and turning in place, and the wings really seeing themselves stay close. The point really, I think, just slowing that turn down and seeing that you're close to that piece through the entire thing. Yep. So that's what this team would do if they were going to go up and go do this dive again. They know, okay, I'm going to go, we're going to do the same exit. We're going to see that 13 inter picture. And if they go do that, they're going to, those 13s are going to be seconds quicker. Yeah. So the next team, this team is in phase 2. They're building trust and speed. So in this dive, we're going to say they're working on having a really nice block start, making the block starts explosive, but without sacrificing technique or letting things get big. Yeah. So that's their goal. Effective block starts together and powerful. They may have an exit goal of trying to get to the second point in 3 seconds. So their dive is A16, F12. So they're trying to get to the build of that 16 in 3 seconds. Yeah, that's their exit goal. Okay. So we're going to watch this. The first watch is just how are we doing on our goals? So one goal was 3 seconds to the second point. That's very easy to measure objectively, and I timed it, and it was 3.4 seconds. So we were close, but we're not quite there. Yep. If we were saying, did we do what we wanted? Certainly the 12s are really nice together. First move, the pieces get really small and explosive. The 16 has parts of that too, but also parts that we can improve, I think. And then so and out the door, we said we want 3 seconds. We were close, 3.4. So we can look at ways to go get that 4/10. All right. So if I'm the point, I would say, okay, so towards the exit goal, as we build this 16 out the hill, we could all kind of help the tail who's down the hill a little more. And if maybe I'm looking just a little more through the whole piece and helping to bring this piece down the hill, that's what I want to do out the door to help that 3 seconds. The point would probably say I really like how the starts of the 12s feel, the compression on that piece and how the piece gets moving and how the hips are pushing in. The explosive start is really nice. And same with the 16s. The 16 compression is really good. But probably if I were a point, I would say I really want to make sure that I'm aware of the momentum of my hip, and I'm not just pushing it through and sometimes causing my momentum to be moving through before it's time to go, that I'm really timing the momentum of my hip with the rest of the piece when it goes. Yep. So that last one was nice, and then sometimes we'll see this is the next one. I noticed it on the last one and the first one on the hill, that the hip isn't always contributing to that first start. Yeah. All right, so that's what the point might say. The outside center might say, yes, out the door, I really want to help bring everything down to the tail to help. I really like the initiation on the 12s. They feel great. Really like the initiation on the 16s. And then outside of the scope, he might say, I really want to see more dives with A's in them and have confident A builds. But recognizing it's out of the scope of what we're trying to do here. Yeah. The inside center might say, man, we're so close to those 3 seconds, and I think I just want to come out the door with my hips a little more presented to the wind. Right here, so that I can be presented and key it quicker. And then I'm just going to key it quicker, and we're all going to go sooner. And then also I think as inside center, I can help contribute to that first build on out the door. This is a good kind of freeze frame of what I'm talking about here with the points hip as well. Yeah. The inside center would say they really like the first pictures on the 16 and the 12, and especially the 12. The way that the piece is moving and the way that the inside center is contributing to the piece moving gets better and better and better through the dive, and he wants to make that happen on the earlier ones too. If I were tail, I would talk about that 16 build and say I want to make sure that I don't feel behind, that I just let it take the time it needs to take to get my hip there, and trust that the team will set it up for me as well. The tail would say he really likes how compressed this piece is getting and how easy it is to control and how much power he has on it. Yeah. So as a team, if they were repeating this, they would go out and just plan on, let's plan on keying this. It's going to get keyed quicker, and we're going to get to that 16 by 3 seconds. We're so close, we're just going to go do it. Yeah. They might also say, let's really focus on those 16 builds and really make sure that the start is nice and together. And then otherwise, let's keep the 16s and the 12s just as nice and compressed and powerful as they were. And that's their action items. Yeah. Okay, now the last team, so the context, this is round 1 of nationals. They are in pure execution mode, just trying to keep the nerves down, go out and do what they've been training all year to do. They're ready, they feel great, all that stuff. But we're debriefing this now, not in the meet, but in the context of debriefing the season, the performance of the meet, as well as kind of starting to come up with ideas about next season and how they want to plan next season. So this debrief might be the time to be a little more extensive about what we're talking about. But I think it is still important to keep that goal in mind, that the context of what the jump was and that we're not just looking for what to fix, we're also debriefing what we were working on as well. Yeah. So the goal here, it's not anything technical at all, it's just go out and do our best performance. Let's do us. Let's showcase what we've been working on all season. That's it. That's the goal. Cool. So the dive is EFK22. Great. So our goal was our best performance. So we might step away from this being like, man, it was great. We got out the door. I felt a little bit nervous in the exit and going to that first point, but then I looked across and everything was great. We were looking at each other. We were calm. We just kept it together and we went and it felt great. And I was really happy with the dive. And that might be the debrief, and that might be great. They might say, yes, it felt a little bit nervous in that first transition. So maybe next time let's just make sure we're confident in that first transition from the H to that E, that we're not just going for the grips, but we're flying our bodies and being off and then picking up and allowing that to happen. When we debrief meets, we talk about things being measurable. There certainly is a measure in the meet, and so this team scored a 13 on this dive, which means they got to the K. Point 14 was at 36.41 seconds, and 14 was the highest score in the division for this team. So they could say, man, that's awesome. Like, we were 1 point off the best score, and it's just a random build. So it's very easy to see, how do we get that 14th point? So that's the kind of measurement we might do. On rhythm, we would probably go even further, and we would time each page. We would time the blocks, and we would start to compare. Okay, are we? We would look even more finally at exactly where the points were. But I think we can watch this and say, okay, knowing that we were 1.4 seconds from the high score, tying the high score, which would be the top of the 22, and it would be a lot to imagine getting to the end of a 22. We can look at it and say, okay, where can we find that second and a half? Yeah. So when I watch it again, thinking about that, we talk about that first transition on the hill. The random page is really nice. I think the block technique looks really nice. And the things that start to stand out to me are the that 22 build and the E build out of the 22. Here we're allowing it to rotate, and it's causing the point to have to go all the way around, and we're waiting, and thus we're waiting for that. Yeah. Same with the 22. we're giving the point a lot to do to get there. Yeah. So what are things we could do? What are action items we could do? So again, it's interesting because this team's not going to go do this again. This is round one of nationals. They're debriefs. They're not going to go repeat this dive probably anytime soon. So the action items should be, they're going back to their notes and they're starting to say, okay, these are the things that we're going to add to our training season next year. So I really want to look at 22 builds on the creepers, maybe getting the outside center to step forward a little bit more, so that we're all thinking about that junction with the point right here. The point's hand on the outside center's leg is always the last thing. As point in the off time, as I'm visualizing now between nationals and when we get in the tunnel again, maybe I'm going to visualize starting to think about going for that hard grip first. You know, I'm slowing myself down by getting the left grip, the arm grip on the outside center, and then I'm not in position and and I have to go get that other grip. So being patient and setting myself up and picking up both grips at the same time, or even thinking about getting that hard grip first. Same thing with the E-builds. You know, when we get together again, let's get on the creepers and make sure that we really are thinking about the heading. Find one here. The heading that we want to put this E-build on. You know, and as outside center in the off time, maybe I'm gonna go and do some research and like rethink about how I'm visualizing that move out of the 22. So I'm backing out and opening that up and leaving that line between, you know, this line between if I have a line from point to tail, I'm leaving that line kind of there. So I'm putting myself over in this area over here. So this debrief that I've just done is a little bit different than the other two, but do you see how it follows the same, it still follows a lot of the same principles. We're acknowledging what the goal was. We're talking about that goal. We're recognizing both the strengths and what can we do to get better. And we're thinking about, okay, in the context of what we've got next, what specific things can I do to make us a better team next time we get together.